Happy Monday, everybody. It's time for another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin. And Mike, Diamond Hogs, headed back to Omaha. We're so excited because you guys
I'm going to get one right off the bat.
Well, duh. If it wasn't the first question of the show, I'd be a little concerned. So our first question is from S. Giles, who asks, now that you've been proven wrong about it being hard to win a series twice against a tough opponent in the same season, what surprised you about Arkansas's 2-0 sweep of Tennessee? It was easier the second time than it was the first time.
Yeah, I mean, definitely wrong about that. I can start with the fact that I never thought Liam Doyle would pitch badly against them twice, or they would get to him twice. He gave up, I think, 6 runs against them in the first one, and in this one, 5. And that's what really surprised me. He had all this time to think about it. I'm sitting there thinking, this guy's one of the best. He's the SEC pitcher of the year. He's not going to let Arkansas hammer him twice.
Yeah.
And they did.
And a Golden Spikes Award finalist as well.
Exactly. So I'm thinking, that's just not going to happen twice in a row. So my thought process was, in the regular season series, it all boiled down to this Marcus Phillips, who's their number 2 guy. He started in the first game. So it was again your 2 guy, then your 1 guy. So then I'm thinking, okay, Marcus Phillips, this is the whole key to everything. Now he gave up just 3 runs in that first. He pitched really well, but he only gave up 4 in this one.
Yeah.
The difference was Zach Root and Gabe Gackle. In that first one, Root gave up, I think, 4 runs and Gackle 3 runs, so that's a total of 7. In the Super Regional game, Game 1, Root gave up 1 earned run, 2 runs overall, and Gackle just 1 run. So the difference really in that game, which they won, was pitching. It was much better. I mean, Phillips was about the same, just gave up 1 more run. But again, the real surprise is I thought Liam Doyle would beat them. But I also felt like if they somehow managed to win Game 1 and lost Game 2, they would win Game 3. So once they won Game 1, I thought, okay, they can lose this one. They're still going to win because they have better pitching depth. And it turned out that it didn't have to happen.
Yeah, it didn't.
So, yeah, that's what I was surprised about.
I kind of like your thought process there because I also thought a similar thing. I was telling people all week long that, Tennessee, they did not like the fact that they came here and lost to Arkansas, right? There was a lot of if you remember that series, it was huge. Fans were excited. The atmosphere was great. I thought the momentum was going to shift towards Tennessee.
Exactly. It was that whole idea of beating a team twice. 2 series. It's a series. It's not 1 game.
No.
It's beating someone the best 2 out of 3 once. And then 3 weeks later, you have to do it again because I don't know when that's ever happened before.
And the team who's coming back to do that still remembers the pain of that series loss in the regular season.
What they accomplished was unbelievable.
It was crazy. And to do it, obviously the Game 1 was a very tight win, but they still did it, right? Then Game 2 was a complete domination. So it was like, to do it how they did, exactly like you said, it was like, wow. And then to go and be 3-0 in the regionals, and then in the Super Regionals,
I'm told this is the first time Arkansas has ever gone 5-0 to get to Omaha, and I haven't looked that up. Somebody told me that.
Okay.
But that would be you don't lose any of the regional games or any of the super. You have no losses in the Super.
Yeah, no losses to this point in the postseason. That's just. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. We have more questions about this win over Tennessee. Lanny asks, and I love this question. Any idea why Van Horn was so emotional after the game? He's been to Omaha maybe 10 times over the years. This isn't his first rodeo. He about lost it in his presser, just buried his head.
I've never seen that before from him. Now, I talked to a guy, Matt Jones, the internet writer, not the ex-football player.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
With Whole Hog Sports.
Yes, and he said he'd seen him do it once before, but I never have. To me, Van Horn is always this stiff upper lip guy. I've never seen him react particularly about that drop fly ball that kept him from winning the College World Series. But all of these years since then, 2018 up to today, he hears it all the time or he reads it. People are saying it. He's aware of that. I thought he'd just been handling it, Then this whole thing of you don't get out of your own Super Regional 2 years ago. You don't get out of your own, your own regional 2 years ago. You don't get out of your own regional last year. So teams come in here and beat you in your regional, and then they go somewhere else, and you just sit around twiddling your thumbs. I didn't realize that had bothered him that much, but apparently it had. And then finally, and this is something he specifically commented on, he said, this bunch has so much talent, and they're such a bunch of good guys to be around and coach. He said, I was worried all season that I wouldn't do the right things to get them to Omaha, the right buttons to push to get them to Omaha. And I think all of that combined to make him emotional the way they were. And I've sort of changed my attitude about a lot of things watching him react to all of that. Because, again, I didn't think it was getting to him. And it did.
Yeah.
And it obviously did. Now, I talked to somebody that was close to him after the game, somebody that knows him really well, or after the presser, somebody that knows him really well. And here's what he said to me, and this is, this may be fortuitous, maybe not.
Oh, okay.
But he said, every coach reaches a point, no matter how successful they are, where they just say to themselves, I have a right to enjoy my accomplishments. I have a right to sit in the stands with my family or go places with my family and hang out with fans at the game and not be responsible anymore for what happens. I don't get blamed for anything. I'm not pressured. I don't have to be the one to make it happen anymore. I've got my accomplishments. I can enjoy them now, because there are people that don't do that. Bear Bryant, he died within, months of his last game? He didn't get a chance to sit around and do that.
Yeah.
There are just coaches that do that. They coach for so long and they're responsible. The coach at Penn State, dies right after he gets fired for some other stuff. But it's just like, he had national championships and all these winning records, and never got a chance to just sit around with Penn State fans and go, hey, I'm cool. And they're going, yeah, you did this, you did that. I don't know that that's what Van Horn finally has decided, that, I've done enough. If I don't win it all this year, or if I win it all, I've done enough. I don't know if he's at that point, but it made me stop and think that all coaches get there at some point. I do. At least the ones that have enough sense to realize you can't coach till you die. You should reward yourself for what you've accomplished instead of sitting around going all the time, yeah, but I've never done this. Boy, I got to keep coaching till I do that. And then what if it never happens and you've never allowed yourself
to just enjoy the moment?
I mean, I don't think the average fan understands that because you get to be a fan and watch all this stuff. I don't think they understand the difference between that and a guy like Van Horn who has to make it happen every year. Every year he's got to recruit. Every year he's got to figure out who's in that starting lineup. Every year he's got to figure out the pitching rotation. Every year he's got to make all these correct decisions all throughout the year. And every time it goes wrong, it's his fault. Oh, he should have done that. He took this guy out too early. No, he left him in too long. And that's just pressure on pressure on pressure. How can you enjoy that?
Yeah.
But at some point, can't you say to yourself, look what I've accomplished. I've won almost 1,000 games at Arkansas. Almost 1,000. Can I not sit back and finally say that's good enough? I don't know. I don't know if that's what that means, but that's what I saw.
I see exactly what you're saying. And I think also there is some kind of, and we don't know what he's thinking exactly, but I think he knows that if it's not this year, the end is near, so to speak.
What about what he said to the Creighton coach? I'm not far behind you.
And that's what I'm saying. To put two and two together, he knows that he doesn't have a lot, he's not going to be coaching, until he's 100.
But there are people that think he's going to be here 4 or 5 more years, and maybe.
Maybe? The only person who knows that is Dave Van Horn, right?
I mean, this is going to be a subject that's debated, but I was doing a radio show this morning with Phil Elson. He thinks he's got several more years. He's fine. He didn't read that press conference in any way, shape, or form the way I read it.
Okay.
So we'll see. I don't know.
Or he could just turn around and say, after this year, he's done, no matter what happens in Omaha. And that's why he's getting emotional.
Sure.
That maybe that retirement is coming a lot sooner than we thought it would for him. Hog Redneck asks, is it safe to say that Van Horn completely outcoached Tony V in this super regional? Sure looked like it to me. Got to believe that a lot of Tennessee fans are really mad about that.
Yeah, I don't know about the Tennessee fans being mad at him. I haven't read a lot of Tennessee social media, but I got to believe he won a national championship last year. He's their kind of guy. They like him. They're going to defend what he did. The only way he got out coached, if you want to look at it that way, is he made decisions with regard to relief pitchers, and Van Horn made decisions with regard to relief pitchers, and Van Horn's decisions worked better. Van Horn used 4 relievers from the 3rd through the 9th inning, and Tennessee scored 3 runs off of those during that stretch, not each one of those guys. Vitello, Arkansas scored 9 runs from the 4th to the 9th inning with him using 6 relief pitchers. So his decisions about bringing people in didn't work as well as Van Horn's. And so that you could say, yeah, you got out coached, you brought in the wrong guys, you just misjudged or whatever, and Dave Van Horn did a better job. I don't know any other way you can say that there was a coaching thing there.
I mean, I do think it's safe to say that, Hog Redneck has a point there because they won. They won the Super Regional. So if you're asking on the basis of, well, yeah, you got out coached because at
you
the
won
end,
and they did.
Yeah, so I guess that's the way I look at it.
But the way I look at it is the real contrast was the decision with the pitchers.
But that's a valid point as well. That's a valid point that you made in that game too.
Vitello did end up saying that sometimes when you get hit in the mouth the way they did, you don't bounce back. One of 2 things are going to happen when you lose like that. And they lost a bunch of games. They lost some series at the end, which is why they ended up as a 14 seed, even though I would continue to say they should have been a 10 or 11. He ended up saying that he thinks maybe that affected his players negatively because it can go both ways.
Yeah,
it can fire you up, or you can come in and go,
Yeah, I agree. Well, honestly, I think at the end of the day, though, as a coach, right? And I know this because my dad has been doing it for a long time. He's always said, when those losses happen, a lot of the time, if you're a good coach, you put it on you. You go, what could I have done better? He outcoached me today. He did that. They outplayed us today as well, but I also got outcoached. So, again, that's just how I look at it.
I do think Vitello was really interesting in his press conference. I want to talk some more about it later.
We are. That's a tease. That's a tease, okay?
It really wasn't what I thought. I thought he might, deflect the blame, pop off 2 or 3 times, do the whole bad boy Tony Vitello thing, and he wasn't anything like that in a press conference.
He wasn't, and he even spent time going around the field, and we're going to talk about all that because it's good. But that's a tease. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back to answer your questions. Welcome back to this week's edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. Mike, we were just talking about Tony Vitello. We have another question about Tony Vitello here. Arkansas Orange says, I like that name. That's a good name.
Well, it says to me, I don't know this guy, that he lives here, but he's a Tennessee fan.
Okay.
He's in Arkansas, but he's orange.
Weird. I don't like that. All right, never mind. I don't like that name anymore. I got news for you all. You thick-headed Hog baseball fans in this state. Yeah, I don't like this guy. Sorry, I don't like him. Tennessee is going to win the College World Series again, and Tony V will never go back to Arkansas. We pay him 3 times what Van Horn makes. He's a Vol.
Well, he's definitely wrong about the first one because they're not going back to the College World Series. I don't know about the next one. That some people think Vitello will come back here. Some people think he never will. And back and forth. That's like a giant mystery, I guess. but I don't know. He could end up being right about one and wrong about the other. He could end up being wrong about both of them.
Yeah. But he could end up being right about, though Tennessee will win a College World Series again. It may not be this year.
Yeah, but that's not what he said.
Yeah.
I think he meant this year.
Oh, is going to win the College World Series again this year. That makes sense.
I don't know. Maybe he just said at some point. I don't know.
I don't know. But it's interesting, the whole conversation of, is Tony Vitello going to be the next head coach of the Arkansas baseball team, because
and this guy's saying no way, it's no way, no how, it's never going to happen.
But I don't know. You see him walking around the field, Mike.
Well, let's talk about what the next guy said.
Okay, all right. We're leading into the next question there.
Yeah, because the next guy is just a straight Tennessee fan, I think. He calls himself Ball Boy.
Oh, Ball Boy is definitely a straight Tennessee fan, 100%. Another Tennessee fan thinks that it could actually happen, because Vol Boy says Vitello, will go back eventually. Mark the prediction. I'll be taking opening bets now.
Yeah. And here's where it gets interesting, and this is open to interpretation. In this press conference, Vitello says something that it just stunned me when I heard it. And we all saw this happen. Now, he kind of blew by Van Horn. There wasn't much interaction at first. They did talk later. But he went over there and hugged, what was it, Bobby Wernis? He hugged him a lot, and then there were 2 or 3 other guys. And he said, Vitello said, I may have embarrassed my players. And that's what he meant. They're standing in the dugout. This team has just beaten us. And I'm over there hugging guys on that team, on that coaching staff. He said, I may have embarrassed them. But he said, the fact is that these people are important to me. They helped my career. And he went on and explained that one of them tried to help him get the Missouri job. And so he'll always have strong feelings about these people. And so you get the impression people can say what they want. And look, he's got friends here that say that he wants to come back here. But you've got other people that say no. I talked to a guy after the game who knows Vitello's dad. And he said he talked to him during this series.
Oh, wow.
And he said, no, he knows he's got it good where he is. He makes more money than any other SEC coach. They're gonna make their stadium more like Baum. He wants to make it like how hard it is to play here. And that his bad boy thing works better there than it would here. But then I've had people tell me, look, it's not really him. He's really not this kind of in-your-face kind of guy, that if he were here, he wouldn't act like that way. That's just something that he adopted there, and it's worked for him, and their fans are kind of like that, so he's embracing it, but that's not really him.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know either. I have heard both ways, just like you. I've heard both ways. Hey, he's going to stay at Tennessee. He's got it good. Knoxville's good to him. He likes the area. I've also heard the opposite, that like you, he puts on this bad boy front. This is what I've been told. Because Tennessee was not a program like Arkansas.
Right.
And to get people excited about Tennessee baseball, to get people behind the program, he kind of put on this, larger than life.
Hey, everybody hates us. They're against us. Well, what? You can't hate a guy in orange? Well, you can't do that.
Well, it's just this larger than life personality. But I think if he came back to Arkansas, he would be a little bit more like Dave. And I think you see that after the game.
This is going to remain a mystery. I don't think anybody really knows for sure.
I don't think they do either. I will say this. I'll give Tony Vitello a lot of credit. I know he said he might have embarrassed his players. I think that was a great example of sportsmanship. I really do. I think it was a beautiful
that's not
example.
Supposed to be what they're about.
Yeah, I know, but I thought it was a great example, and I hope other people see that. Cajun Hog wants to know, did you see the video of players going around the concourse and into the hog pen, high-fiving the fans? I can't describe how incredible it was. You just have to watch it to understand. Wow. How about being there on the concourse filming them? Because you and I were right next to them.
No, I wasn't there. I was I was already in the press conference.
Oh, I thought you were next to me.
No, you were out there.
I was.
I heard about it.
Cam tried to high-five me, and then he realized I was filming, and he was like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I heard about it after they came in and started talking about it, but I didn't see it. So then when I watched it later, I was like, holy, this is unbelievable. Because Vahiva Aloy, who Dave Van Horn said he's kind of quiet, he grabbed that Super Regional trophy, and he marched the team up those steps on the other side of the first base dugout where they are, and went right back into that mob of fans on the concourse. And then you watch this video, it's like 10 minutes long or something that lasts forever. And they're just going and high-fiving and high-fiving and high-fiving. And I'm thinking, that could be kind of dangerous. Aloy makes, his fingers are pretty important back there with shortstop. What if somebody high-fives him wrong and breaks his...
Oh, gosh, don't say that, Mike.
you think about those things, but he must have high-fived 500 people or something.
They were high-fiving
left and right.
everybody.
And you just watch it, and it just keeps going on, and then the fans are surrounding them, and then they go into the hog pen, and it starts all over again. And then I guess somebody...
Steel Eves.
Oh, it was Steel Eves?
It was Steel Eves that jumped into the pond.
Okay, Steel Eves jumps into the pond. We talked about him last week. And this whole thing, when you think about it after it's over, this is what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, I know the whole storming the field thing in football. We've even seen storming the court in basketball.
Right.
And there were a few times under Musselman when Musselman would run up into the stands and a few of the players would go up there and mingle a little bit.
Yeah, and when he took off his shirt, that was
This
a great
was the
moment.
reversal of storming the field. This was players storming the stands.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
So maybe that's the real answer. To avoid getting fined, don't storm the field. Let the players storm your turf.
I love that. I just think it was such a cool moment that you're not used to when you think of college baseball.
I've never seen it before, and I just sat there and looked at it and went, whoa, where did that come from?
I have no idea, but I also, because again, I thought they were going to dogpile. And I remember in the post-game press conference, Cam was like, oh, well, I wanted to dogpile. And I think, I can't remember who else said I wanted to dogpile.
I think they made a decision, no, that wouldn't be cool because it'd make it look like we thought we accomplished a big thing when we wanted to be. Well, we just beat Tennessee again.
Well, they kind of just said they were waiting for the dogpile. I think Logan Maxwell said I was waiting for the dogpile, and it was Vahiva who just went, taking the trophy, and we're going up to the stands.
Yeah,
and
a much better thing than dogpiling.
Oh, it was awesome. Awesome. Shows how much this team is just, they're different, they're together. I love it. Razor Alex 88 says, I have a special song for Tennessee baseball after how their fans talk so much trash recently on X. I'm going to try and do this the best way. Na, 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 hey, hey, hey. Goodbye. Did I do that pretty good?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
No question that this has developed into Arkansas's biggest SEC rivalry right now. I would say that Razorback fans hate Tennessee even more than they hate Texas, partially because Texas hasn't been playing Arkansas as a member of the conference but one time, and you beat them, swept them, so there's no hate yet built up for that.
No. It's not like Florida and Tennessee.
I do think Tennessee has overtaken Ole Miss as the team you hate that you want to beat.
Really?
Don't you?
I don't know. I feel like their fans on Twitter these days are like, yes. They're kind of like, they remind me of Kentucky fans a lot with how much they're in every comment section and, all of that.
So maybe right now that's that kind of rivalry. I think if Van Horn leaves and Vitello comes here, or if Vitello goes somewhere else, even if Van Horn leaves and Vitello goes to another school or whatever, I think at some point it would still go back to being Texas and Ole Miss. Mm-hmm. But right now, Tennessee, I think, is at the top, and I think you saw that.
Yeah, I think so as well. And again, I agree with Razor Alex 88. I was watching their fans all over social media as well and just going, whoa, this is a rivalry, right?
What were their fans doing? Because I didn't look at any of that.
I mean, I had one of them that people thought was kind of funny. If you think, one of them that said, what was it that he said to me? He said something about trailer trash. Something about trailer trash. But I said to him, Mike, you'll love my response. I said, I'm sorry I can't hear you over the sound of Arkansas winning.
Yeah.
Is what I said, and people liked that. So.
I guess they don't have trailers in Tennessee.
I mean,
I think people live in mobile homes everywhere, every state.
Every single state.
At least anywhere in the South. And last time I checked, Tennessee was part of the South.
I feel like they do in the North, too.
Yeah,
I've seen trailers in the North.
I'm not up there enough to know that whether to go around looking at mobile homes. But
well, I think there are a lot of places. Anyways, all right, we're moving on to the next question. Hill Country Hog asks, what... This is funny. What was Root yelling about when he came off the field in the 6th inning of the game 1 of that super regional? He was really mad.
See, you've got kind of an attempt at getting an official explanation, and Root himself said something like,
I blacked out.
It was the spirit of the moment, but I blacked out. And then Van Horn said something like, well, I didn't really like him doing that. He said, he's releasing too much adrenaline when he does that. I want him to release adrenaline while he's actually pitching. So he would prefer that he would save that, whatever he was doing there, for pitching. So there's no official explanation. I've gone around and tried to talk to different people about what was really going on there. Some people think it goes all the way back to the first series. That maybe this guy, what's his name, Phillips?
Yeah, Fisher.
Fisher.
Yeah, Fisher was
Not
mouthing.
Phillips. Where'd I get Phillips? Fisher.
Marcus Phillips. You were thinking about the pitcher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That he did something in that first game that made
I don't remember the
Root mad.
I don't remember the first game. I don't. If somebody in the comments wants to let us know, I do know
when he struck out.
I do know he was mouthing off.
Yeah,
I do know he was mouthing off.
And the at bat before he hit into this double play, Root struck him out.
Yes.
And he did walk across the plate and look back. And there's not a shot of Root, so I don't know if he yelled something at him then or if they exchanged. But other people have offered this explanation. And I've gotten this off social media, that at first base, he was so close to the Arkansas fans over there by first base that he was yelling back and forth with them. And they even got to the point where one point he tossed a ball into the stands. That players do that sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a foul ball here.
Oh, I watched that.
And they started throwing it back to him.
They threw it back to him. They didn't want him.
Yeah,
his foul ball.
because he was mouthing off, and that Root and the other Razorbacks are right there in the dugout, and they see that going on because it's right out here and then right back there, and that's what he was mad about. So, you know, like you're disrespecting our fans, go home, shut up, get out of here, whatever he said to him.
I don't know. I think it was from the mouthing off. Because if I could, because I saw him do that, and I don't know if the broadcast caught a moment of it. I saw him say something to Root. And I think that's what started this whole, I don't know. But maybe it was in the first series.
Oh, it could have been when he hit into the double play. He could have yelled something back at him.
I don't know.
Vitello said that he didn't have any problem with what Root did. He just said, I wish they had used the same approach when my guy got kicked out and their catcher. And he wasn't able to play in that game because he got kicked out for something that happened.
He just wants the same treatment.
Right.
So, you know, and I agree with him there because I liked his response of, I don't know how much the fans paid to be here, but I bet they would pay a lot of money to see Root versus Fisher.
Yeah.
You know, and I said, that's actually a good way to think about
That's
it.
a good way to look at it.
All right, we are going to take another short break. When we get back, what are we talking about, Mike? Revenue sharing. It is. It's here. It's here.
It's actually happened.
It has. So instead of just us talking about it for the past, year?
No, it hasn't been a year, but
I feel like it's been a year.
It's been about 6 months.
It feels like a year. Anyways, when we get back, we're going to talk about it being officially passed and what that means now moving forward. That's coming up next. Welcome back to another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. Mike, revenue sharing has passed, and we have questions about it. Mousetown says, you and Courtney have been talking about this revenue sharing plan for college sports for months. I was just starting to think it was just talk, but it finally got approved. How big is this?
Well, it's big because, as we've talked about all along, what it does now, it turns athletics, college athletics, back into a thing where, yes, the athletes are going to get revenue, but there's a cap, which means just because I have more money than you, just because I have boosters that are willing to give more money than you. Texas went out and spent something like $30 or $40 million in the last portal just to bring in portal guys. They're not going to be able to do that anymore. There's a cap on that. So that's the most important part. There's still some issues about NIL and whether you can get around it on NIL. I think what's going to happen with NIL is Deloitte, which is the governing body of this, or the business that's going to enforce it. First of all, if you're talking about NIL through a collective, anything over $600 is disallowed. So you can get $600 to an athlete through a collective. Well, any school can get $600 to a player. Beyond that, if it's a NIL deal coming from a business, they're going to come in and see that that's a legitimate business transaction, which is what I've talked about all along. You can't tell me that if you give some kid $1 million and he does 2 or 3, hey, come to this business because they've really helped me. And like people are going to look at that and go, I got to go over and buy and go to use that business. It's just a ripoff. That's just a way for that business to give money to get to that athlete to go to that school. So now Deloitte is going to come in and say, no, what you're doing here is not worth $2 million. Maybe it's worth $50,000. And they'll reduce it now. We're going to probably be lawsuits about that until we decide if that's allowed. But all of this to me is positive. I think it's going to work.
I think so too, and I think you bring up, we've talked about it so many times, the cat has been out of the bag, right? It's not going back in the bag, all right? The cat is running around and having a good time. Now it's just to try and figure out, okay, can we contain the cat a little bit?
Right.
That's my example for you here. It's just, how are we going to make this work? And I think it's the start of it. Expect lawsuits. They know that. They know they're going to expect lawsuits. And Deloitte, I'm sure, is going to have to figure out some things. And okay, well,
work in progress.
Exactly. And I've heard as well that they're not going to come in immediately. So until they come in, what's going to happen? You know, there was a reason why the other night before this went through, you saw so many NIL deals start to go through.
Yeah, they wanted to get them out of the way in advance.
Because anything done before this happened, anything done
is still allowed.
Was allowed, yeah. So all of your $1 million NIL deals that were not scrutinized, you know, before this. T. Henderson says, so revenue sharing has passed. Big deal. It'll be thrown out in court.
Well, here's where I think he's wrong, because this ruling was not by the Power Four, the NCAA. They did not do this.
No, it started in court.
A federal judge ruled this. I approve this.
Yeah.
And it was the federal judge that did the original NIL. So some judge at a state level you can go, and if you're Tennessee or some other school, you can say, or the legislature or whoever, you can say, well, we have a rule that says, we have a law that says it's okay. I think what's going to happen is the federal ruling is going to overrule that, and the only way this gets thrown out, in my opinion, is if it goes to the Supreme Court. And I told you a long time ago that I believe these people doing this, maybe it was through Tom Tuberville, I'm not sure who it was, they were in touch with the Supreme Court and knew how they felt about this.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to be overturned, and I don't think you're going to be able to defeat this in court.
No, it has a lot of people who are behind it. Now, the schools initially, I feel like, weren't totally 100% behind it because of the cap, right? Oh, it's a $20 million cap. What if, you know, our football team wants to spend $30 million, you know, or whatever.
And there are questions of how basketball gets greatly reduced. What are they going to do about that? And baseball, what are you going to do about that? I don't know. That still has to be determined.
Yeah.
But
I mean, based on what Arkansas has said and other programs as well, women's sports are going to be included in that cap.
That's right.
They're going to get a piece of the pie, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And so I honestly think maybe it does help women's sports a little bit that, hey, you do have some money that we can spend on your programs. I don't know how much. It probably won't be a lot. But, hey, it might be more than they had before. So it is a start. And this is what we've said on the show before. It is a start. It's not the end-all, fix-all, be-all. It's a start. Hot Dogger asks, is it true that Tennessee could be kicked out of the SEC based on the House settlement agreement and its recommendations? Tennessee would likely be in violation of the settlement, wouldn't they?
No, it's not a matter of violating things before this happened. Anything that happens before this is not a problem. Where Tennessee would have a problem is if they continued to do this. Now, they may file a temporary injunction and try to continue to do it. But at some point, if the courts rule that this is allowed, then Tennessee or other schools have a choice. They can continue to say, no, we have a right to do this, then you're going to have to leave the SEC, leave the Power Four or whatever, and form your own organization. I suppose that could happen. Mm-hmm. But I think in the final analysis, what they will do is they will say, okay, we tried to fight this and we're not going to, so we're going to abide by this. It's the law.
Yeah, I think so as well.
It's not the law, but the law has affirmed your right to have rules governing your sport.
And I also think it's not about being kicked out. If they don't abide by this,
they can't join. They can't be a member.
Right, but it fuels those rumors that we've heard of for months and months and months that, hey, is the SEC going to break away? Is Tennessee, are specific teams going to break away and form their own thing?
I don't think in the end they will, but we'll have to wait and see.
Oh, I don't know. I think I disagree with you there.
Okay.
I think that's what we're heading down towards because I think you're going to get stubborn programs. It's not just Tennessee.
But how many are we talking about here?
I don't
5,
know.
10?
That's a good question, Mike. Is it enough to break away and form your own thing?
Right.
That's what I think we'll find out. Is it just 5? Could it be 15? Could it be more than that?
Right.
We'll find out. That was a lot about revenue sharing really quickly there. We kind of did a round robin very quickly. When we get back, we're going to talk about a few other things. The Women's College World Series walk-ons, because they could be affected with this revenue sharing agreement. And I believe basketball as well. We're going to talk about that a little bit after the break, so stay with us. Welcome back to this week's edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. Mike, Eddie Lynn has a great question about this whole revenue sharing thing and how it'll affect something really important to the University of Arkansas specifically. Because Eddie Lynn says when he was the temporary head coach, I remember Barry Lunny Jr. saying that Arkansas needed to add more Arkansas kids as walk-ons because being a Razorback meant more to them than most players coming in from out of state. He goes on to say many of them would go on to earn scholarships and become key players at Arkansas. He said, however, with roster limits, it looks like revenue sharing will put an end to this. No more Morgans or Burlsworths, not good.
Okay, you told me that you think that there's a way around this, but I don't know that there is. Look, scholarships, what is it, going up to 105 for football?
I think it's 105,
but that's as large as your roster can be.
Correct.
So everybody is on scholarship. Okay,
Correct.
This is not necessarily a bad thing, because here's what will happen. A lot of those guys that were walk-ons, they now will be forced to go to another school. Let's say you were a Grant Morgan and you came along now and Arkansas didn't give you a scholarship. You could go to Arkansas State or some other in-state school, or you could go out of state. Then when you prove yourself, you could still go, hey, Arkansas, look what I've done over here. We see this all the time. And then they go, yeah, we'll take you because now we'll give you a scholarship.
Yeah.
So I don't think it eliminates these people. It just makes them wait a little bit longer to become a factor.
But it does beg the question, will there be a true walk-on at some of these programs?
Yeah,
at some of these,
there may not be.
Right. But I believe, and I'm going to go back into my memory bank here, that Sam Pittman was asked about this. And I can't remember exactly what he said, but I do believe he said there will be a way that we can continue that tradition. Maybe by saying that one player is your designated walk-on, right? One player is, maybe you can get, I don't know. I mean, this is not for me. This is above my pay grade.
Again, I think this is a benefit to mid-majors because I think it keeps guys that want to walk on rather than get a scholarship at a mid-major. It pushes them back and says you got to do that.
It is a benefit. There is good to this, but it is kind of sad to think about how would you give, you can't, the Burlsworth Award.
Well, maybe you can't. I don't know.
We
need to ask him.
Marty
Burlsworth.
I think we need to ask Sam again because I'm pretty sure he was asked about this but didn't have all the answers just yet, or I could be totally misremembering that. But I believe they were trying to maybe give an honorary something. If they're not, hopefully that's something they're talking about because, I mean, it would be nice to have somebody that you could honor that legacy with, you know? I don't know. That would just be my opinion and how I would do it. Okay, WV Hog fan says there was another instance in the Women's College World Series where the replay booth took 10 minutes on a call that they ruled was not reviewable. What is going on with that system?
We're not quite sure, but it sounds like maybe you have fewer people involved in the review process. And if you have refs at the game and coaches that don't understand that what they're asking is not reviewable, so they ask for a review, then it goes to the review people, and they're pretty sure, no, this is not reviewable, but they're going back and going through documents.
Going through everything,
Going through everything. Oh, yeah, here it is. And then they come back and say it's not reviewable.
Appendix G, all
so
right?
It may be something as simple as you have fewer people involved in the replay process with women's softball than you do in men's basketball or men's football or whatever.
I think that probably that's the case only because of the amount of time it takes versus those other sports, right? They're just taking way less time. I've also been told, it's because something like that instance in the Women's College World Series, they found the Appendix G or whatever it was that said, okay, this is a non-reviewable play. And they found that and said this is where the instance. So, I mean, again, that was my understanding of it, is that's what happened there. KY Hog wants to know, He always wants to know this.
Yeah.
Is Cal adding any more players this season? Also want the new cap on spending for recruits hurt Cal's recruiting. Thanks to Tyson, Arkansas is one of the biggest basketball recruiting budgets.
Okay, we'll take the two questions. The first one, it does look like they may add another player, and it's probably a foreign player, right?
I would say, yeah, a foreign player, maybe two foreign players.
Because why? Because you can bring these foreign players in. You don't have to give them NIL money because they're not allowed to accept NIL money.
Yeah.
So that's where we think
and you can also, and let's be honest too, it's not just about NIL. It's also about the fact that there are talented players overseas right now, and that could round out your roster nicely.
Yes, I mean, you're not doing this without a reason, but what I'm saying is if you've already spent your NIL budget,
true,
you could still go and get them this way. So that's where we think this is headed. Now, the other question, you and I disagree a little bit. My attitude about this is that Cal has a reputation of getting his players into the NFL.
NBA. I got you.
NBA. And that alone helps him recruit. Mm-hmm. But you've been told that there's ways they might be able to get around this.
I think they're looking at ways right now to figure out how they can still have a large budget, right? Because
basketball is not included in this revenue sharing to a very high degree.
Well, they are included. Here's the thing.
But it's not.
If you're yes, they are. If you're a program that wants to spend more on your basketball team,
yes,
you can do that. There are no rules right now saying that $20.5 million cap can be spent solely on football, solely on basketball, solely on baseball. Whatever you want to do with that money, that's what you can do.
What could happen here, though, because most schools, let's face it,
they're going to spend it on football.
They're going to spend it on football. So if you end up with shortages in basketball, what you could end up arguing is that and we'll have to wait and see if this happens, is that more kids would come directly out of high school into the G Leagues because they're not getting anything from going to college. Now, the G League doesn't pay much, I don't think.
No.
So I don't know why that would be an alternative, but maybe it is.
But you still miss the idea of, I believe that they will be able to broker NIL deals. Who did they just hire as Arkansas's GM?
A basketball guy.
Do you know what I think he's really good at doing is figuring out deals and where to find them and looking at those rules from Deloitte and going, you know what? All right, that rule, got it. How about this? How about I can do this? I think that's why you hired a guy like that.
Yeah, and you could be right about that. A lot of revenue sharing is going to be, let's wait and see what happens.
It is, because somebody, and I think I even said this in the last segment, somebody is going to be made an example, right? Somebody is going to break a rule, and Deloitte is going to have to come in and do whatever punishment they're going to do. And that is going to kind of give us an idea of, okay, are they going, are they just bringing the hammer down on punishment and going, no, done? Or are they going, okay, that's a warning, that's this. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
We don't know what's going to happen with them. I know this. Cal is not going to just go, we don't have any money. We'll be fine. I'm going to rest on my laurels of getting guys to the NBA. Yes, that's going to be a recruiting tactic, but I'll tell you this. They are going to find a way with their new GM to figure out NIL deals that are legal under this new landscape.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay. That's my soapbox.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk, Mike. I appreciate it. That's going to do it for this week's Ask Mike. We may not have an Ask Mike next week. We don't know what we're doing this week, so be on the lookout. We may be in Omaha, and we may not do an Ask Mike next week. But if everything goes well, which we hope it does for the Omaha Hogs, then we'll be back in a couple of weeks and hopefully talking about some good news. That would be great. But that's going to do it for this week's Ask Mike. We'll see you next Monday to answer, or we may not see you next Monday to answer more of your questions.
We'll post it.
Yes.